So last time we created the structure that you see here for a ribbon rig, and basically we got the IK chain, we got all the bound bones on the follicles themselves. I got the shapes on. So we got each of the bound bones connected to these follicles, and basically what we're going to do is create an IK and get some stretchiness going with this, and then connect everything up so that we're able to control these two bone chains with one bone chain. So let's get going. Okay, so let's create the IK first. Basically what you need to do is create a custom spline that's going to go through here that the IK is going to recognize. So I'm going to go to my side view, and I'm going to go up to create a CV curve. Let's go to options. I'm going to reset the tool just to make sure we don't got any crazy options still on. And what we want to do is create a linear curve degree on this. So make sure that you got linear on. And that's just because we don't want any extra CVs in between each of these curves that each of these CVs that we're going to be creating on here for the curve. So I'm going to vertex snap this. And I'm using vertex snapping just so I can get it directly onto each joint. So once I did that, it created the curve for me. I'm going to rename this CSPL, and then if you're rigging like a spine or something, I would call it CSPL spine, CSPL neck, whatever. I'm just going to call it 01. And then let's create the IK. So I'll go to skeleton, go to the IK spline handle tool. We want to go to the options. Make sure you always reset the tool. We don't want any crazy options again. We want what we want. So go ahead and check off all these options, because again we want this IK that we're creating to be totally custom. So let's go and do that. And then in here in the outliner, this is how I'm going to create the IK. Is I'm going to click on the root of the IK chain, as you can see, and then I'm going to control click the last joint in the chain, and then again control click on the curve. And you can see it created an IK for us. There it is. And it also gave us one in the outliner, which we need to rename. So again, SPL, keeping the same naming convention for our IK, so we keep everything nice and organized. And so the next step after creating the IK, which is good, we got the IK going, is to get the stretch to be going. And that's partially why we created this IK, is so that we could get this nice distance node going in here, so that we get the right kind of stretching for the bones that are going to be bound for our character, or in this case just a plain old cylinder that we'll be creating. So in our mel command line here, we're going to be typing in the script for that, which is arclin, and then we want the channel information for that, and then what you got to do is put in the name of the curve, so CSPL _ 01. And we got a result here called curve info 1, so it created this node for us, the curve info, which we're going to be using the curves info for creating the stretch. Okay, so for creating squash, what we actually need is a second curve here. Now this curve, the second curve, isn't going to be driven by the IK. It's just there as information, distance information to give the right kind of stretch and squash for our bones, since we'll be scaling those. So let's go ahead and duplicate that, and then hit up on our command prompt and type in 2. always make sure that you have a semicolon at the end of a script. It's this good behavior. It's not necessarily necessary for something like this, but you know, it just makes the program not freeze up or have to think a little bit too much. You know, we don't want computers to think too much. So hit enter on that, and you can see we got the result, curve info 2. As you can see, there are no extra nodes in our outliner here. We can't see those curve infos that we just created. So the way to see them is we go to our display here up in the outliner, and we turn off the DAG objects only. So now we got curve info 1 and curve info 2. So curve info 1, I'm just gonna name this, RibbonRig underscore curve info 1, and just give that name, just keeping same naming conventions. Curve info 2. So one is going to be used for stretch, the other is going to be used for squash. And you'll see how that works once we start connecting all the other nodes to this. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this video off now, just because it's probably going to run another 5 or maybe even 10 minutes to hook all this stuff up, and we'll continue with the stretching and the connections in the next video. Okay?